Hi, I'm Jenna.
And I'm Jody.
And today we're in my backyard at the Horatio Colony Preserve. And we are lucky enough to be joined by Anita Carroll Weldon, who is the director of the preserve. Anita, thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It's great to be here. For those of you who don't know, the Horatio Colony Preserve is just off of Daniels Hill Road in Keene. So it's really very close into town, but we feel like we're a million miles away.
That's great.
So Anita, tell us a little bit about the preserve. How did it come to be here?
Well, the preserve was originally 415 acres of land that Horatio Colony II inherited from his grandfather. And it's now owned and operated by the Colony Memorial Trust, which Mr. Colony set up before he passed away. The trust also runs his home, which is a house museum now at 199 Main Street here in Keene. And in the past few years, the trust purchased another 200 acres that's contiguous to the end of the preserve in Swanzey. So we now have 5 miles of hiking trails.
It's a wonderful place to come and hike. And who was Horatio Colony? Was he, when did he live? I don't think most folks in Keene, they've heard the name Colony Mill and they've heard about the museum on Main Street, but they probably don't know much about who he was.
Well, shall we go inside the cabin? I think that there's a display in there that can help explain who,
Great idea. Let's check it out.
Horatio.
All right, let's head in.
Excellent. Oh, wow, this is great. How beautiful.
So Anita, this is the cabin that Horatio, you said there are two Horatios.
Right.
Horatio the first built it or Horatio the second?
This was built by Horatio II.
Okay.
And he was a writer, and he built this as a cabin to get away to that he could do writing in solitude. He built it around 1938. And it's still here, and
it's in great
a wonderful
shape.
site. Yeah.
Have you worked on, I'm assuming there's been a lot of renovation to it since then? I mean, otherwise it wouldn't look so great.
A few years back, we did a renovation. Antioch, New England Graduate School, who helps us manage the trails and do public programs. At the time, they were hosting an alternative program called MC Square. It was an alternative high school program.
They had it at Stonewall Farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so a group of students from that program worked with a preservationist, and they were taught carpentry skills. They rebuilt the foundation in areas where it had fallen in. They renovated the cabin, put a new roof on, painted the inside, and they did these 3 interpretive panels that are inside that gives information on the history of the Colony family, the preserve, and also the animals and plants and trees that you would find up here when you're hiking.
That's wonderful. So it really was, a whole community effort.
Definitely.
Between the Horatio Colony Trust, or is it called the Colony Family Trust?
The Colony Memorial Trust.
Right. And Antioch New England Graduate School and some high school students.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think too, for those students who are now, probably in college or beyond, to be able to come and see this and all the work that they did is just wonderful.
And we have a plaque just inside the door that has their names. So
great.
So they're memorialized here at the cabin for the great work,
that they did.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Jody, do you want to go in and maybe take a look at some of these
I think that'd be
signs?
great. Yeah, so let's go take a look.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
So we've come into this cabin. It turns out there are some great displays here that folks can come right in when they're visiting and look at. So this one here is about the family tree showing the Colony family, a little bit about them. And so Anita, tell me, this is the first Horatio Colony here in this picture on this display?
That's right. There were 2 Horatios, grandfather and grandson. And what the tree points out, the family tree, the first ancestor was John Colony, who came to Keene from Ireland around 1760, and he was a farmer. His grandson was Josiah Colony, and Josiah co-founded the woolen mill here in Keene with Francis Faulkner in 1815. Now, one of Josiah's son, actually his youngest son, was Horatio Colony I. And He, Horatio, and one of his brothers took over the Colony family interests in the mill when Josiah retired. And Horatio Colony I began to buy up plots of land here at the preserve when agriculture went into decline and these farmlands came up for sale or were abandoned. So he started to purchase these properties in 1892, and up until his death in 1917, he gradually added these properties. And when Horatio I died, his grandson inherited this, and he was Horatio II.
And he took over, and this is where he wrote.
Exactly.
And there's this main room here, and then there's a smaller room off to the side, and then another smaller room off to the side that looks like it may have been the restroom. It has some water in there. There's a sink. We've got this old fireplace here, and then there's also a few other displays within here. There's this piece about history, and then Jody, have you seen some others here?
This is a great display on the whole mountain in itself. And it's got some great pictures of the Tip Top House, which you really can't tell. When you go up to the Tip Top House, you really can't tell now that there really was a true building, but the foundation is there. There's even an old bed frame that was still up there.
Yep.
It's really interesting. And then you can see a beautiful view of like the Keene High School, the Maple Ave area.
You can see one of the baseball fields from up there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's also in here, there's also some other information on another nice display board about the wildlife that's in the preserve. Some of the mammals, some of the amphibians, birds, and plants that are here. So that's really what the preserve is used for today, is hiking and exploring.
Right.
So with that in mind, I thought maybe we could go out. There's an information kiosk with a bunch of really nice things that folks have put together that you can use when you come hiking. So if we want to head out there, we can look at some of those and see some of the real nice old stone walls that let you know the history.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
history
Let's
of the
head up the
area.
trail.
Okay, great.
I have found this kiosk to be so helpful.
Good.
Now, the first thing when I walk up is I see some information here, but then I see that there's this area that there used to be a map. Tell us about why there's not a map now.
Well, the map is being worked on actually because of the new land acquisition. We're changing the map to include that and the
All the new
additional
land.
hiking trails. Right.
And is it right that people can come here and we'll be able to hike all the way to Pisgah?
Right. The preserve is part of a collaboration with Monadnock Conservancy that has preserved a contiguous greenway from this nature preserve all the way to Pisgah State Park. And
That's great.
there's hiking trails that will link up to these hiking trails here that will be about 10 miles going all the way to Pisgah, and those will be open fairly soon.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking as soon as I heard about this, how great it would be for a family to come in, in the winter. You could, on a nice day where it's not too cold, snowshoe from here to Pisgah, leave a car at one end and a car at the other, and what a great day that would be. And then there's also this box, and my family just used some of these. Inside here, one of the things is this booklet that is the Horatio Colony Trail Guide. And it has some fabulous information. It shows you a map of the trails. There's a loop trail, and then there's also a ridge trail, right? And how many miles, if someone wanted to come, approximately, if they're doing these trails, would they be expecting to hike?
This will be about 5 miles, including the new property. Originally it was 3.5, which is what's currently
listed
shown
here.
on the
Okay.
map, right.
And throughout this, the loop trail and also the ridgeline trail, there are stations with numbers.
That's right.
It's great because in this booklet, all of the numbers, like for example, site 12, so as you're doing the hike, there will be a little number that tells you what site you're at. And this is site 12 is a vernal pool, and it tells about what a vernal pool is, and it tells all throughout the book there are some historical sites, there are some natural sites. There's one that we loved, which was a soil pit that showed the horizons of soil going down in. And my kids and I thought that was so interesting. We don't know much about, the biology, or I guess it wouldn't be the biology, but the science of soils. So we learned a little bit through this booklet. It was great. But this isn't the only thing in here. There's something else in here that looks very seasonal.
That's right. In addition to the guided trail maps, we have an offering of seasonal quests. And quests are like treasure hunts. On the pages that you get, there are a series of little poems that give you information about the natural things that you'll find along the trail, but they also include clues that take you to a treasure box.
Have you ever done a quest, Jody?
I haven't, but I was just reading over some of this, and it sounds really fun.
It does sound fun.
Yeah.
I know there are quests. It's a very big hobby people have.
It is.
All over.
Right.
And so you're saying that these change with the season. So you might have had a different one in the summertime.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
We even have one in the winter if you're brave enough to come out here.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
each season. Now there are these are sort of self-service programs.
Definitely.
But there are other programs that the Preserve offers that are more with a guide or with a leader. Can you tell us a little about some of those?
That's correct, yes. They're offered mostly in the summertime, and they're led by Antioch interns. And we have a whole series of programs that are geared towards families. The first one that we do in June usually is a bird nesting program where the migratory birds are just coming in and building their nests. We do a Scats and Track program where we can find evidence of animal tracks and scat for the animals that live up here in the preserve, and you can learn to identify the different animals through these
And are these free programs?
They are all free, right.
So on a Saturday, if you've checked the website or seen it in the paper, you can just come on out at the appointed time and have a great day.
Yeah.
Right.
I've actually been on an owl program here.
Yes,
So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Was it in the nighttime?
It was.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah.
An owl prowl.
Yeah. Oh, that would be really fun. What time of year was that? Do you remember?
It was so long ago I can't remember, but
Yeah.
I mean it was interesting because you met a whole variety of people that were here for different reasons. You know, some were students, some were seniors. It was a great variety.
Well, and I remember, I think I just saw something on your website maybe about some programs that are in the fall. So there are programs, not just the summer, but there are sometimes fall programs as well.
Right. And we're also in the process of installing a permanent orienteering course.
Oh, that's
here
great.
at the preserve, and you'll be able to either download the maps or get them from the museum, and you use the maps and compasses to go around and find these different orienteering sites that are just off the trails a bit, so you wouldn't be able to spot them just through
by walking.
Right.
And their trails are really well marked too.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you're traveling in the summer or in the fall or in the winter, you're still going to be able to find your way around.
The trail that we did the other day was the Red Diamond Trail. Is that right? That's what I remember. And actually, you can see right behind you, Jody, there's a red diamond on the tree. They're so well marked. I've been on a lot of trails where I wonder, is that a blaze on the tree? I can't tell. And this was so easy to tell. Actually, we were up at the Tip Top House, which maybe you could actually tell us a little bit more about the Tip Top House, because it's not any longer a house, it's a structure. It was a structure, but now it's like the foundation, like we were saying earlier. But what was that originally there for?
Well, Horatio Colony I built this cabin that was used as a summer camp for the Colony family. He built it.
How big was it?
It wasn't really large. It had 2 bedrooms. It had a large living room, a kitchen space. It had a nice porch on the front that took advantage of the overlook, and there was a woodshed as
And
well.
they would get there by horse, is that right?
They would come up by horse, and later on when automobiles came in, they would drive up to the bottom of the trail, and then they would take a horse up. They would arrange to have horses here, and they would ride horses up. Not these hiking trails. There was a more gradual way to get up. Yeah.
Okay.
And so they love to come up, especially on Sunday afternoons in the summertime, and spend it at the cabin.
I was really surprised when we got up there on our hike the other day with my family. We stood there. You could see the old where the porch had been.
Right.
You can see the stairs that would have led to the porch. And then you look right out onto West Keene. It's beautiful. And then we thought the trail was leading us down the hill. But luckily, because it's so well marked with the blazes, my younger son immediately said, no, we're going the wrong way. The blaze is over there. So yeah, this is a great place. If you're just getting into hiking or exploring nature, you can feel really comfortable here. You'll never get lost. I mean, I'm not going to say never. There are people that will, I'm sure. But it is so well marked and so accessible, and there's so many great things to do.
Oh, there is.
For people that are really very comfortable in nature versus people who are just starting to get involved.
Right.
So that's really nice.
And it only takes about an hour to do the small loop before you get the 5 miles. But it only takes about an hour, and it's not a hard trail. There are some steep parts, and you will want to wear hiking shoes and things and be prepared. But it's a beautiful hike.
Right.
And it's so close in. It's great for a morning or an afternoon hike. The one thing I wanted to ask you, Anita, is there's all of these stone walls in evidence as we walk through. Can you tell us why that? I would assume that's all related to farming. Were the colonies farmers originally?
Actually, well, of course, the first colony, John Colony, was a farmer, but his farm was not up here. The history of the farming in the preserve, it started when Samuel Daniels built a farm that part of his farmland is now part of the preserve, and that farm was built in the late 1700s. And then around in 1817, a farmer named Japhet Parker built a farm right at the top of the hill.
Okay.
And the foundation of his home, the cellar home, the foundations of his barn, and the well are still there right off the Red Diamond Trail.
Oh, we saw
and
that.
It's one of
Oh,
the
that was
sites
his.
on the,
Oh, great. Okay, I didn't realize that was the original farmhouse, so to speak.
Right, right. And so because this area was so hilly and rocky, it was more conducive to sheep farming. And it was right around that time that the sheep craze was happening in New England, specifically in this area. And of course, the sheep were needed for the woolen mill, which is what the Colony family owned, along with the Faulkners. So this became all grazing land for sheep. The fields were cleared, and the stone walls that you see here are evidence of that. The stone walls marked property boundaries and also the boundaries of fields, and it was also a way to dispose of the rocks that they were clearing.
Trying to get out of the way.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
And one of the things I'm curious is when that sort of shift happened away from using this land as farmland and then started letting it reforest. Do you know when that shift kind of happened? Was it when the colonies bought the land or prior to that?
It was prior to that, and actually one of the big influences of that was the coming in of the railroad in 1848.
That makes sense.
The railroad came right into Keene, and it actually went right through the Colony Mill yard. And of course, the railroad opened up huge opportunities for new markets, for travel, but the other thing that it did was open up farmland out west. In certain areas of the west where the climate was warmer, so
A little more agreeable to the farming, for sheep farming.
and consequently, the sheep farmers out there could shear their sheep twice a year instead of
Just
once a
once.
year like the farmers here. So it essentially cut the cost of fleece in
Amazing.
half.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
And they were able to ship their fleece back here.
And to think that that affected this land directly.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
It's so interesting.
Definitely. So the farmers began to either move out west or just retire from their lands because it wasn't profitable anymore. And this all started to happen after the Civil War. So by the time Horatio Colony started to acquire land, the forest was already regenerating in the fields that had been cleared.
And that's what we see today as the result of
Right.
all of that.
Right.
So interesting. There was one program that I just wanted to mention because I thought it was such a great program for young kids. I believe I saw some fairy houses down the path.
Yes, yeah.
And that was a program that was done, was it this summer?
It was. We offer it every summer. It's called Fairy and Gnome Homes. And it's specifically for younger children, but I think the parents get as much of a kick out of
it's
this
so fun.
program as the young kids. And they imagine what kind of fairies and gnomes would live here in the preserve. And of course the preserve's so magical, it's really easy to do that. And they just use natural materials that they find right around the trail here, and they make these wonderful whimsical homes for these for the
It was so neat to be
creatures.
walking along because my kids used to make fairy and gnome homes.
Oh, okay.
And as we walked through, they said, "Hey, look, there's some." You know, it was really neat to see as we were walking through to think that people come here for all sorts of reasons. You know,
Right.
whether or not it's a historical walk with the trail guide or a natural history walk. There's so much to see. So, did you have any more questions about anything to do with the preserve? And there's so much to talk about.
I have comments actually because I have hiked here quite a bit in different seasons, and it's just different all the time. If people get a chance to go up to the swamp, which is called the
Tupelo
Swamp, it is like being in a mystical place because you don't even feel like you're close to Keene at all.
Now that's not on the loop trail. 'Cause
Nope.
I didn't see that. So you go on the
No.
Ridgeline Trail.
It's at the end of the Ridgeline Trail.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah, and it's moss everywhere. And the smell, you can smell the dirt, and there's a lot of bugs up there. But it's just beautiful.
It's a whole different
totally,
ecosystem.
It is.
Whole
It's
different
totally
ecosystem.
different than this down here. Yep.
Yes. And some of those tupelo trees are as old as 400 years old.
Wow. Really?
But it's deceiving because they don't get very big.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, and you do feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. Like nobody would ever, think of where you were. It's
Well,
just
it's amazing to think to me again, like we have this ecosystem here and a very different one sounds like there,
Right.
where you
Right.
could see. And I want to
Right.
go check out and see if there's what kind of insects are there. Of course, my interest, and also all the different kinds of plants that might be there.
right.
Yeah.
And in the guide there is a lot about the plants. There's also a lead mine that was here at one time.
That's right.
And can you
Right.
tell me a little bit about that?
Right. That mine was mined from about 1830 to about 1860. And they used lead in the production of copper,
Okay.
this particular kind of lead. And by the time they stopped mining it, it was because it was just getting too expensive. The deeper they went into the mine, the more water would go in, and they would have to pump the water out, and then that just became too expensive.
much,
Yeah.
So has that just filled in with water now?
Right.
Because I think I know where it is, but I never know exactly. And there's a lot of glacial rock up there as well.
There
So
is,
even
yeah.
when you're walking, you can feel the temperature change so much when you're just walking through some of the areas because it just gets really cold.
Well, and it's nice too because in the guide when we were out the other day, it points out a few glacial erratics.
Right.
And so my kids were, checking out the different colors in the boulders and things like that. So we really touched on, recent history and then really, really ancient history when we were on our hike here.
Right.
And I look forward too to seeing what this will look like in the winter because Jody's told me what a great snowshoe spot.
Oh, it is. Winter really is the best time, in my point of view, to hike because you don't have the rocks, you don't have the stumps to go over, and it's quiet. I mean, even though you might hear the wind or some of the cars further away, it's just a beautiful place to be. And especially when there's fresh fallen snow, even if the trail hasn't been made, you can follow it again because it's so well marked.
So well marked.
Yeah, there's trees that have fallen over, boom, the stump is right there with all the roots on it. There's a couple that have crossed the paths. They've had to change the paths over the years.
Yeah.
So you just never know what you're going to find. I even have found, but don't tell anyone,
Uh-oh.
lady slippers. But
Oh, the flower.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you just have to, when you go on a hike, you need to just look a little further and look up and look around you and don't keep chatting all the time and don't bring your phone and text. You need to just relax and enjoy the experience.
And that's a good point because it is a nature preserve, so we're trying to protect the habitat for both the animals and the plant colonies that are up here. So we really try to urge people to stay on the trails
Right.
to do that, to help us do that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with
Oh,
us today.
thanks
Anita.
for
It's so
coming
great to be
today.
here. And if anyone has questions about the Horatio Colony Preserve, they do have a website. Do you have is it horatiocolony.org?
HoratioColonyMuseum.org, and we have a page on that website specifically for the preserve.
HoratioColonyMuseum.org. And the other thing to remind you is that if you have any questions or comments about the show, to email Jody and myself. And it's inmybackyardch8@gmail.com.
Excellent.
Great.
Okay, so we're in my backyard. You never know where we're going to be again in my backyard, but we'll be someplace in the Monadnock region. Please join us again.
Thank you.